Hello, everyone. It's No Driving Gloves. Just a quick episode. We've been doing a ton of interviews, but I like to interrupt and just have some of the hosts here chat and cover a few little things. I'll got Sean here today, and him and I have been talking online and text messaging and stuff, and figure we're going to address this kind of, I don't know, it's kind of in the room, not a big thing, but maybe it's a slow news week. And
it's a tiny elephant in the room. It's not a huge elephant in the room.
Well,
it's worth talking about just because it's timely and it's out there. So tell the folks what we're going to talk about, John.
Well, we're going to talk about something. We're going to take a lot less than 26 hours and 38 minutes to do it. And that's the whole problem is 26 hours and 38 minutes, the new Cannonball cross-country record. For some reason, this has taken a life of its own. I mean, NBC's covered it, CBS has covered it, CNN's covered it. I assume
Fox has covered it.
Yeah, Fox has covered it.
All the major news outlets have had something to say about it, and that's not normal for something like this.
Yeah, is it because we don't have real racing? Is it because it's a slow news week? Are we looking for something more controversial than COVID-19? But
I think that's what it is.
It takes our mind off of it, but it makes us, responsible lawbreakers feel bad. I mean, I've never
responsible lawbreakers.
Well, that isn't that the whole conversation about this thing?
That is a straight up oxymoron, my brother.
Well, the controversy behind this run of 26 hours and 30 minutes is it just beat the last record of I can't remember what the record was. It got beat
27-25, I think is what the but it didn't just beat it, it crushed it.
27-25 and 26-38 beat it by an hour, but the 26-25 beat Boland's time of 29 or something by an hour. So in the last 2 months, the cross country rogues, the
scofflaws.
From New York to California cross country run has been beat, and each time it's been by an hour. Now, there was a lot of talk at the beginning of this pandemic. Would somebody try this? There's a web channel YouTube channel called VinWiki, and I'll admit I get a lot of my information from VinWiki, and it was created by Ed Boland, who set a record in 2014, I believe. 13?
Yeah.
Doing this in a Mercedes when he was like 32, 33 years old. And he kind of did it on a slow news week also, and was able to launch a 1 million subscriber YouTube channel, and has built himself a pretty good name. I mean, he had a good name in cars anyway, based off of this. And then somebody came along, and I'm sorry, I can't remember any of the names. I'm horrible with names in real life and interviews, and maybe I should make some notes for this. But somebody came along just a couple months ago, and beat that record. But the discussion was, with all these lockdowns, who's going to try to break this record cross country? There's a lot of people always trying to break the Cannonball record. It's not like somebody wakes up one morning and go, hey, we're going to do it. Let's do it. There are teams, and they're organizing, and they're building cars.
It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of planning to do something like this.
I mean, if you want to do it 2 people, you still have, you figure, 2 people, 3 radar detectors, radar jammer, you can go. You're probably not going to beat it. The previous record was done with spotters that were arranged, and some sort of, I want to say gyro, or some sort of rooftop mounted radar that they use to monitor for police. It's not exactly like the TV show or the movie from 1980 and Burt Reynolds, but there is a lot of planning, and there's a talk of everybody getting together and doing a run. Some people will go for the record. Some people just want to go cross country. Again, Boland has said on VinWiki he's going to do it. He wants to do it in the ambulance, the Meta something ambulance. It's a reproduction of the ambulance from the Burt Reynolds movie, which is actually a reproduction of the Brock Yates cross-country record attempt in '78 with using a Dodge van. looking like an ambulance with Brock Yates' wife as the patient, and I can't remember who his co-driver was, which I should. So
Tom
there,
DeLuise.
well, in 1980 it was, but there was another one of the big founders of the Cannonball. And, Brock Yates set this record back in 72, 74 with a Ferrari Daytona, and it's beat time and time again. And so this isn't something that two guys woke up and said, hey, we're going to do because COVID-19, we can race cross country. People are trying for this record all the time. The big question is this a asterisk run or is this a real run? I have my beliefs on it. Sean has his beliefs, but you've listened to me talk for 5 minutes. Let's let Sean give his fill-ins on this and launch this.
I'm going to be completely boring and put on my instructor hat for just a second before I get into it. Typically, actions like this taken on public streets, even though when I was younger, I participated in some street racing, some drag racing when I was younger on the streets, but we did it late at night and where no one was around. And from a high performance driving instruction, a driver control or a teen driver training instructor, and someone who's been doing that for a long time, it scares me a little bit that's happening out on the streets. Now, having said that, the car guy in me is like, oh, hell yeah. It's definitely something that I find appealing. For whatever reason, it appeals to the 6-year-old in me that thinks that this would be an absolute blast. As far as there being an asterisk on this record, how can there be? Like, people are saying that because the guys or the team that had the A8 that went out and did this in 26 hours and 38 minutes, and depending on the route, averaged probably somewhere between 103 to 110 mile an hour, depending on the exact route to get from point A to point B. They're saying there's an asterisk on it because of COVID and reduced traffic. And to me, I look at that and I'm literally like, okay, they saw the current situation. They had the plan in place. And with the current situation of there being reduced traffic all the way across the country, they jumped out and took advantage of it. Why does that put an asterisk on it? There's no different than saying we're going to do this over December 24th to 26th, or we're going to do this during Thanksgiving, or we're going to find a low. This makes perfect sense to me. Why would you not do it right now if you were going to do it? And you're practicing social distancing. You're in a car. You're not near anyone.
Now, see, I'm on the opposite side. I think this is an asterisk run. I'm going to say, I don't care.
You're wrong, but that's okay. That's fine.
I don't care that they did it during COVID-19. We can take spreading the disease and all of that, and let's push that one to the side. They took advantage of a situation. The Cannonball, C2C, coast to coast, whatever we want to call it, record, yes, there are no rules. You start at the Red Ball Garage and you end up, I can't remember, somewhere in New York or California. And you can use any route you want. You can use any route. And I haven't heard which route these guys took, because the previous record breaker took a different route than everybody else. And they used this northern route as opposed to the southern route, and it's road construction plans and things like that. But everybody who's done it, Brock Yates back in the early 70s, the people that ran it, through the 70s and into the 80s, and the people that have run it in the last 10 years, they have all done it with normal interstate traffic. And there's the argument is, well, interstate traffic has got busier and busier, more crowded, so there's an effect on it. So this run is very authentic because the traffic on the interstate's more like it was in the 70s. Well, no, it isn't, because the cars are better. Okay, if they would have run this in a 72 or Ferrari Daytona, or a Dodge van, or a Hawaiian Tropic NASCAR, Okay, maybe. Then the technology of the car is the same. An Audi A8, I think that it was an L even, did not exist in the 70s. This car goes, faster to 60 than that the Ferrari ever dreamed of, the Daytona. You know, it has handling that's beyond that. So the roads are better, the surfaces are better. So if you're going to say, well, there's less traffic, then let's make everything equal and do it in a period car. Then maybe you don't need the asterisk. I think you need the asterisk because they did it in a modern car on modern roads with 70 style traffic conditions. Yeah, they took advantage of a situation and did it, but they didn't do it in the spirit of the non-existent rules. And yes, I'm sitting here saying they're breaking the rules of an event that doesn't have rules, and that's the
That
whole
doesn't make
thing.
sense. That doesn't make sense.
you
Oh my
need you
God.
need to do it with present technology, present traffic conditions, present law enforcement technology.
Why?
That's what everybody has to go up against. You
Why?
have this 2-month window that you can shoot to try to do this in, and you'll probably never be able to repeat it. It's like saying, okay, we're going to run the Indy 500. We're going to do it 33 times, one car at a time, so you never have to deal with traffic. Whoever does it the fastest wins.
It's a
Is that
completely different scenario. It's a totally different situation than a closed course event. I mean, it's the team that did this in the Audi A8 saw the current situation, evidently either already had the plan together or had the wherewithal to put the plan together really quick for the route that they were going to run. As far as technology goes, why would you not run it with current gen technology? Why? Like that's like saying that the current lap record for whatever racetrack around the world isn't the actual lap record because the first lap record on that track was set back in 1957. So, you can't look at it for that's no, that's crap. We truly don't agree on this at all.
and I think that's part of why I wanted to touch on this and kind of have this argument because you and I have a common history of disagreeing on a lot of things, but I think
we've been agreeing on a lot of stuff lately, so it's good that we're getting this out. I'm very appreciative of this.
No, and I just, that's my defense on it is it's not the exact same situation. Let these guys come back in 6 weeks and run it again when there's traffic on the road.
No,
and
they
see
already
what
did
happens.
They win.
No, okay, let's do it as a speed record. You got to run it both ways. You've got you've got to repeat it. I mean, this is it's just such an anomaly. I don't think it's fair to the current record holders. I don't think it's fair to the people that are going to try to pursue it in the future.
Someone else can do it right now
if they're ready, or if they're, I don't want to say irresponsible. It is irresponsible, spreading, in this.
It's irresponsible talking about this like we're talking about it right now, like it's no big deal.
That's the funniest thing about this is there's so much debate over, are they breaking the rules of it, as I said earlier, of a race with no rules.
What you were literally trying to do, John, is turn the Cannonball Run into a spec event, and that is total crap. Like basically what you're saying is everyone that runs the Cannonball Run should have the same spec Ferrari.
No, I'm not
the same. It's you're literally, you want everyone in a NASCAR, or you want everyone in an Indy car, and it's the same chassis, the same motor, the same tires. Why?
I want people to run it with the same kind of obstacles. But when you remove one of those obstacles, I mean, it's like running this and saying, and I'm sure we're going to, in order to beat this, you're going to have to see it. You're going to have to figure out how to refuel your car, at speed, or slow down to 50 miles an hour and, connect to the helicopter above you or whatever.
Well, that can be done. We've seen Mythbusters refuel on the go. So yeah, it can be done.
Yeah. And that's really what it's going to take. I mean, yes, you figure out how to do it, but you're figuring out how to do it in the parameters of the world as the world evolves. We've set the world back, especially as far as road traffic, 20 years. So you're taking current
So
tech
then it's
and
wait. You just admitted that we've set the world back 20 years, which is exactly what you want to do
just
in your spec scenario.
on traffic. You've got to run it with the same car. If you're going to run it with the same traffic, you need to run it with the same technology of car and automobile. Now, if you want to throw a huge fuel cell that's as big as the back of a Ferrari Daytona, or you want to, the ambulance had, I can't remember, 100-gallon fuel tanks or something. I mean, they were, they had their quote cheats, but you can't cheat if there's no rules. So, I don't think you're going to convince me that this isn't an asterisk run.
You are literally contradicting yourself every other sentence.
And I'm not I'm not a baseball guy, but I look at this as Barry Bonds. And when they figured out these people were using performance enhancing drugs, their records were adjusted. But the people that use performance enhancing drugs before performance enhancing drugs were illegal get to keep their records.
Are you saying that we need to form a federal committee to investigate the use of our interstate highway system for a Cannonball run record during the COVID-19 outbreak? So we literally need to put together a committee of high-ranking, he uses air quotes when he says, government officials to pull the people that were in the Audi A8 into Washington, D.C., sit them in front of this committee, shine a very bright light on them, and basically prove that this is your asterisk run, just like they did with baseball, which I thought was a complete and total – actually, the majority, I think, of sane individuals thought that was a complete and total waste of our money as well.
Basically, I think the only way I'm going to be happy is if somebody comes out as soon as all of this is over and the world returns to its new state of normalcy, whatever that is.
Whatever that is not going to be the same as it was 2-3 months ago. It just isn't.
Hopefully in June, but, depending on, which news channel you heard this information about the Cannonball run record on, maybe October, maybe next April. Somebody needs to go out and beat this record really fast. I'm saying it can't be done with normal conditions. And this record you're going to see stand for a long time because it again can't be done with the world the way the world exists on a normal day. This is like saying, I can get somewhere in 5 minutes on a Sunday morning because everybody's in church, but it takes me 45 minutes when it's, Tuesday afternoon. So maybe I do prefer to go somewhere on a Sunday morning opposed to two in the afternoon. But
let me ask you a very serious question.
Okay.
All motorsport, every series, for the most part, has a rule book. And in that rule book, there are people employed at the top level of motorsport to grab that rule book, comb through every single word, look at the verbiage that's used, interpret that verbiage, and figure out where the gray areas are or the gaps in those rules to allow whatever team, and this is in spec racing or run what you brung, to allow the team that they're on to take that rule book and then craft a car to take advantage of that gray area and those gaps. We're talking about an event that literally has no rule book. No rule book. There are no gray areas. You're dancing in semantics.
And I totally understand that I'm on the losing side of this argument. Especially as somebody who really doesn't have a ball in this chase, because I'm not going to
neither of us do.
I'm not going to hop in my Ford Fusion and go for this record. Maybe if I had my SHO, it would be a different story.
At that, dude, I look at the people who do this. I do not possess the balls to even consider this. Like this is basically saying I'd like to go to jail. I mean, it's really, to me, is like I'd like to have my car impounded, never see it again, and spend several months underneath a jail cell somewhere. It's insane to even consider it.
Well, again, if you watch this VinWiki channel, you'll find there's one video that I don't know if they still have up, because it was a very irresponsible video to put up, in my opinion, on speeding in a rally and having 5 figures worth of cash, in the glove box, and how they figured out how to get around some of the tickets. This one guy is the most, and I'll say it, and I think I said it on the show, whatever episode that was, is one of the most arrogant son of bitches in the world. That he's, we did this in Mississippi, and when we got to Alabama, we knew we were good, and we had $10,000, and we happened to leave it when we stole our car out of impound or whatever. They're you feel like you're invincible. A lot of these guys that do it aren't mega dollar millionaires. They're just doing it to do it, and what's the worst that's going to happen? A couple $1,000 in fines. And
when Bullion did it, he I don't think he was a mega dollar millionaire. I mean, he was.
Bullion did it.
Was like, I want to do this.
Bullion did it on bootstrap budget. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's differences of bootstrap budget, but he's kind of admitted he really, he put everything he had into that run and did it. Where a lot of the guys doing it now, it's just a weekend thing. Somebody builds a car, they get in the car and they try it. Kind of goes back to a rally. I want to try and say the Cannonball for the middle class, and let's run I-65 north to south, because then we can do it on a weekend. You start on a Saturday morning and be home by work on Monday. But yeah, I'm trying to put rules on something that doesn't have rules. And what you said is one of about the highest level of motorsports and these employees. It's one of the reasons I'm such a Lotus fan, such a Colin Chapman fan, is that his statements are, and I've said it many times, maybe not on the podcast, in racing or in life, the rules tell you what you can't do. They don't tell you what you can do. And obviously there's no rules to this. And that's why I'm saying I'm on the losing side of this, unless I had a dog in the hunt. If I had a dog in a hunt, I might have a little bit more say. But there is no rule book, so they can't break any rules. So it's going to go down without an asterisk. But I think the true people, the true runners, are always going to think of this as an exception run.
So you're saying that the people who have competed in it, or the people, because you're not competing in it, you're literally out there just doing this thing, and it is 100% not legal what all of these teams have done over the years. But you're saying that the teams that have actually competed are the ones that they're the only ones that should have the ability to say that it's a legit run or an asterisk run.
I really think it is. And let's, here's a challenge to Ed if you listen to this podcast, which if you do, we'd love to have you on as a guest. But why don't we get you guys together and say, let's call foul? It's kind of the participants. Now, all of a sudden, now we've added a rule to the no rule thing. And, it's one of those things, careful what you wish for, because you're going to add one rule. And now all of a sudden, like you say, we're going to make it a spec series. So you can't carry more than 88 gallons of gas. You can't use a car newer than whatever. You have to run this route. It really surprised me a couple of months ago that the only rule that exists in this is you start at the Red Ball Garage, and God,
Portofino.
Yeah, that's the Portofino. You run from the Red Ball Garage in New York to the Portofino in California. That's the only rule. Start point, finish point. How you get there doesn't matter as long as you stay on the ground. So you can't be airlifted. And these runs now are satellite tracked and things like that. So you can't run into Pennsylvania and catch a plane and get into the identical car, in Nevada. And when they used to run this, they used to check VIN numbers and everything before we had satellite tracking. Now, this car was timed with a iPhone, this A8 that set the 2638. was timed with an iPhone, but they had a satellite feed running. So everybody knows they ran it. And like I said, I'm surprised I haven't heard if they took the north route or the traditional route. Now, if they took the traditional route, this is a mega bump of the record, because Ed took the traditional route. And when the record was beat, there was discussion. Well, these people didn't run the traditional route everybody does. And again, this is why I'm saying the participants should vote whether or not this is a record. Ed said, yes, he concedes the record because there is no rule to say what route you run. Let's get a couple of these guys to come on record. Put them on VinWiki, and Ed can do one of these little call-in things. He's got some great shows now that, what would you spend $10,000 on, or if you had $50,000 for a sports car, etc. And he gets a whole bunch of people, and a lot of these guys have run the Cannonball over the years, or any of these C2C races. And C2C is actually one of those races too. But let's get them to vote. And I think, he's the most famous cannonballer that exists now. He into the general public. He's, and excuse me, the Yates family, but he's kind of assumed Brock's mantle in this. Let's have his channel. Let's get the people to vote, and let's find out if they're going to accept this record. It's still a record. There's going to be whining no matter what. But since if you don't have a dog in the hunt, I don't think you have a vote.
And I don't claim to have a vote. I just have an opinion. And that opinion is literally there's no rule book. And even if you go back to going back to what you were saying earlier about the car that used or whatever vehicle is used to break the record, Ed broke it in an E63 AMG, if I'm not mistaken. That E63 AMG is a hell of a nice place to spend 27 plus hours. It's a really nice, modern, incredibly powerful car, which you don't really need. And that's the other side of this that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. If you're trying to go coast to coast as fast as possible, why not just choose a car capable of running 130 or 140 mile an hour with a 4-cylinder in it that actually gets decent fuel economy? I don't really understand the use of an A8 or an E63 or any of these cars that literally are going to get like negative mile per gallon at 100 plus mile an hour.
Well, I guess we can look at that too. Ed actually, I believe, did it in an 04 CL55.
Did he? Okay. There was an E63 in there.
The E63 it was a 15 E63, I believe, that broke the record last time. Again, I know you by your car. I don't know you by your name. This is a 2019 Audi A8. Did these guys just run down to their Audi dealership, buy a car off a program lease, throw some fuel cells in it and run? Quite possibly. They did do the thing that the E63 did, and they taped up the taillights to make it look a little bit different. And it's amazing. You take an E63 or you take an A8 and you tape up the taillights a little bit, and all of a sudden it does look a lot like an Accord. Says a lot about your styling, Audi and Mercedes. But, we're not going to solve this, but I just kind of wanted to have a discussion about it. I have a podcast. I want to put my opinion out, but I didn't want to sit here and talk to everybody by myself. And Sean makes some valid points, and, I think
every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Yeah,
but
every once in a while. This is definitely, it breaks the streak of us agreeing, which I think it was worth taking the time that we've taken just to make that happen, John. We've agreed on way too much over the last probably 4 or 5 months.
I mean, it's a good way to kind of humorously break up the interviews we've had, because a lot of those are a little bit more serious. We get a little bit of chuckles and amazing. This, I'm going to close this up, keep this a short show. Amazingly, we've had a ton of new listeners, ton of new downloads. I don't know if it's Spring and Sean on the show. I don't know if it's the quality of interviews. We had our Jim Simpson episode was a record-breaking show for us. If you didn't listen to it, I'm actually probably going to release this, and the Jim Simpson one is the previous episode, so like episode 122. It's also our first YouTube video release video, so forgive the editing. But go ahead and, check out our Facebook, our Instagram, becoming more active in all of those. Again, like I said, we've added a YouTube channel to the mix if you kind of want to see our heads bobble around and some cool pictures in the background. We're still working on the green screens and the editing and getting cameras situated, so forgive us, but we're new to this video. It took us a while to get used to the audio, and the video was a demand. And just check us out on the social media. Tell a friend about us if you agree. Listen to these two quacks talk about the Cannonball. But again, No Driving Gloves, Facebook, Instagram, No Driving Gloves Pod on Twitter. Even get them more active there. Surprising. Or nodrivinggloves.com. Go to the website, find everything you need, plus all the episodes and some pretty cool merchandise that's linked through as Amazon affiliate links, which is kind of the only way this podcast generates money.
Which eventually I'll get the hang of actually promoting properly.
Yeah.
I have one last question before we kill this. If you were going to do the Cannonball, what's the car you'd use? What's the vehicle you'd use?
I don't 100% know. I'm trying to think.
I know.
I
know what I'd use.
I want to say a Ferrari Lusso, one of the new ones, but it stands out so much, and part of this is camouflage. And I think I might have said it earlier. I might look at going and getting an SHO or something because it blends into a lot of police cars. It's looks like every other Taurus on the road. I might get it white as opposed to a black one or something. Or if I could get a blue one, or even a police interceptor Taurus, which is an SHO that is even more police car. We'll do it the Blues Brothers style, cop suspension, cop tires, whatever. But, I might think I'm going to do it in something a lot less exotic. Number one, it's my budget. These AMGs are nice choices, but let's do this pro-America thing and let's buy American. And I think even the Taurus is built in America. It's even a Ford. So yeah, I would probably say I would either do it with a police interceptor or an SHO version of the Taurus.
Okay. I'm not going American. I am literally going to go with something that I think would blend, almost be unseeable. I want a V90. I want a V90 Volvo in beige. And it's V90. You can't fault Volvo ergonomics. It's going to be the most comfortable drive. The thing will cruise at 130 mile an hour all day long. It still gets somewhat decent fuel economy. It rides like a pillow. It rides like a cloud. And you blend into the background. So I would do it very boring. I wouldn't take an SVJ. Or, it's like, I'm not doing this in a Koenigsegg. That just doesn't make sense to do that.
Now, I'm looking up the specs on your Volvo, and let's see here. 4,000 pounds, 2131, 316 horsepower if you do the V90 T6R design. 2-liter 4-cylinder.
I don't even care if it's an R design. The base of the absolute base V90. So, Volvo, if you're listening and you'd like to set a record, don't give me your Volvo, because I truly do not possess the balls that are required in order to even consider this.
Because we're saying this record.
Hats off to everyone that's done it.
We're saying this record was set at 105, 110 mile an hour average.
Somewhere.
Correct?
Somewhere.
You've got some fuel stops and things in there. So that's not your traveling speed. So you need a car that can go a little bit faster than 110. And I'm thinking, 150, 160 miles an hour are probably very seeable numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Again,
just to equalize the fuel stops. Absolutely.
I'm going to get into a little, for some reason, I'll continue this a little bit more, but the little bit of the strategy or the thinking. Again, like I said, I learned a lot about this through VinWiki, and these are guys that run it, and it's nice to see them, and so I have a tendency to believe them. But everybody says you make up all your time east of the Mississippi. Once you get west of it, everybody think that's where you'll make up your time, because they're long, expansive roads that you can, if you go through Montana, I guess, go as fast as you want.
Yeah, but everybody can haul ass there, right? Is that what it is?
everybody can. I don't
Yeah.
understand it. I think the key is you might be running these 160 miles an hour out there, but it doesn't matter because everybody's running 150 or 160 west of the Mississippi. So that time's set. If you ran this thing from St. Louis to LA, or from, say, the Gateway Arch to the Portofino, I think it would be a really, really tough record to beat. It would all come down to top speed of the vehicle.
It'd
I
be
think,
minutes, not an hour.
yeah, when it comes to east of the Mississippi, New York to St. Louis, we'll say, or New York to Chicago, if you're going the I-80 route, there's a ton of traffic. There's a ton of construction. There's a ton of unknowns.
Ohio
is one of the worst states I've ever felt to, number one, speed in, number two, to try to speed in, because they have no concept of right and left lane. I've driven through Texas, east side of Texas to west side of Texas. Ohio is 4 times as long driving east to west as Texas is. It doesn't make sense when you look at a map, but when you drive the two, when I commuted from DC to Illinois, from when I lived in DC and had family in Illinois, Ohio, if I can miss Ohio in that trip, I'd love it. It's almost worth swinging down and going through Kentucky, just to stay out of Ohio. But
how do you really feel?
Yeah, I don't like Ohio.
It's hard to tell.
But yeah, I think that's why you've got to make up your time, is dealing with all of the traffic and congestion. All your problems are going to occur in that first half. All your breakdowns are going to occur in that first half, for building and tuning a car. Longevity problems will happen in that second half. But that first half, I think that, like everybody says, that's the key. And I think you should have a number when you cross the Mississippi. If you don't have that number, you may as well give up, go back and start over. Because
I wonder if people do. I wonder if they've broken it down that far and they know where they need to be as they're getting into the Missouri, Kansas area.
Well, now that these are all satellite tracked and, none of them are live streamed, but, now there's the way to do it. Live stream the thing. You want to talk about having a set of nads on you.
We doubled, whoever is out there right now thinking about going after it, we triple dog dare you to live stream it. Triple dog dare. And you can't turn down a triple dog dare.
But with the satellite tracking, I think you can do those stage times, and I think you could figure it out. I guarantee you, if I was going to do it, it would be a little bit of strategy. I don't think I would, quote, cheat and have the number of spotters. I would want to do it. Let's see what we can do. Go out and get me some new Valentine 1 pluses, or whatever they're calling the brand new Valentine 1 radar detector. By the way, Valentine, if you want to sponsor the show, we're available. They've got a brand new version of the Valentine 1, whole new unit, whole new thing. You can still upgrade your old Valentine 1. They promise you that. I think they'll give you $100 for your old unit. It's worth keeping it, putting it in the wife's car or something, unless your wife's going to be like mine, and then you keep the old one and give her the new one. But, I'm just more of a purist. I've always been a little purist. I'm going to try it, and I guess I'm going to go to jail a couple times. Hopefully they
let's run the Cannonball. Let's get with Jeff Lane and see if he'll loan us one of his micro cars. And we'll do the micro Cannonball. And that way we don't have to worry about breaking any speed limits.
Say we just concluded an interview with Jeff, which is going to come out right after this episode or right before this episode, not sure which. And he was talking about, he does this rally thing. One thing he said, let's set the Cannonball record in an Isetta.
Yeah, I'm in.
And Jeff says those go about 45 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour uphill, probably 20 miles an uphill when you get to Colorado and the Rockies. But
it'd be the record for that car. And that way we'd set the record for that car, and then you have your dream of having a spec Cannonball. Like, we have a spec Cannonball series at that point that people like me, who are an absolute puss, could do because I don't have to go out and break the speed limits. The only thing we'd have to worry about there is actually getting tickets for running under the speed limit.
Well, I'm going to say that there's my idea. We'll start We'll start in, I believe, Mobile's where I-65 starts, and we'll run it to Chicago, so north to south. So when we're running it in an Isetta, we can do it in less than a week. And,
we could do the Isetta. We could do the that classic multiply that he has. We would actually be more comfortable in that. That's a little bit bigger car.
And I want to say this idea just crossed my mind for everybody who's complaining about this reckless speeding in that. I will challenge, and again, we'll triple dog dare on the live stream. Somebody ride their bicycle cross country. Let's figure out. Let's set. I know, but let's set the cannonball, not general pace. I wanted to sprint all the way.
Oh, you want to go from the actual cannonball start and finish points. That's what you want.
Yep. And
okay. I mean, why would someone not do that? Has anyone ever done it on a motorcycle?
I'm sure they've done it on motorcycle. Motorcycle guys are the craziest SOBs on the planet. And, I've got friends that will get on their motorcycle and ride 200 or 300 miles to go have dinner, and then ride back just because they like riding. I guess this whole new topic, and we won't get into it too far. I think motorcycle people are more diehard about the drive and getting out than sports car people, convertible drivers, anybody on four wheels, with the exception of the guys running the Cannonball. But there's a mission there.
I'm actually looking up motorcycle Cannonball right now. If anyone has any information on motorcycle Cannonball records, shoot us an IM on the No Driving Gloves Facebook page. I would love to have more information on that. Someone has to have tried that, or a handful of people have to have tried that. I'm all for microcar Cannonball, John. I think we should talk to Jeff about that and see whether we can make that happen.
Solo Cannonball cross-country motorcycle record, LA to New York City, piloting a 2015 BMW K1600 GT. Carl Reese has broken the Cannonball cross-country motorcycle record.
Carl Reese broke the record and his ass. God, can you imagine how?
Take a guess. What did we say the car record was?
26:38 or something.
26:38 in a car. Now, granted, the cars usually now have 3 drivers, and they can rotate drivers, and they have massive fuel tanks. What do you think the record on a motorcycle is? This is as of January 29th, 2016. I apologize. This is just what comes up on Google first.
37 hours.
Pretty close. 38 hours, 49 minutes.
Pulled that directly out of my butt. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, if you're solo on a bike, you got to rest a little bit.
And I don't know. I'm thinking, track records. A lot of times, a track record at a racetrack is faster with a car than it is a motorcycle. Yeah, the motorcycles are quote faster, but they only have 6 inches of contact patch, where a car's got 4 times contact patch, which I guess would be 24 inches of contact patch. But, cars have a little bit more traction, et cetera. But yeah, I think a lot of this has to do with, looking at a picture of his bike, unless those saddlebags, I guarantee you, are fuel tanks. But
you think they're fuel tanks?
I think they're fuel tanks. I think there's a satellite dish on it, probably for tracking. But
good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
So
and really good for his chiropractor, because good Lord, the chiropractic bills after that 37 hours had to be monumental to get him back in shape.
No, he at least did it on a BMW and was kind of comfortable.
Sure. Have you ever ridden a motorcycle for a couple hundred miles in one go?
No, but who's that guy that we had the huge display at Barber's that took his wife? I remember the wife's name's our girlfriend named
Around the World.
Yeah, Tabitha rode around the world on their BMW R series. And then I guess he did it a second time with a Mercedes G-Wagon and his son. Some huge investor used to be that evil investor's business partner. Can't think of who it is.
Madoff?
No. Motorcycle around world.
This just turned into very compelling podcast material.
Well, I'm assuming
silence and keyboard starts.
Yeah. Chris Foster. Jim, it's the guy's name's Jim something, and I always
Research on the fly.
Yeah, we do this, but if people are hanging around, they really want to know this answer now. So
that's probably true. That's
uh,
probably true.
Nope, can't figure it out. We'll have to. Investment biker Jim Rogers, that's his name. And who was he business partners with?
The American Spinal Surgery Association, I think, is who sponsored that run. The Orthopedic Doctors Alliance. I can't even imagine looking at that and going, yeah, I think I'll do that on a bike.
Oh, George Soros. That's
okay.
Yeah, that's who he made his money with.
Gotcha.
Well, now we've talked about the illegitimate Cannonball record, the legitimate Cannonball records, the new micro-car north to south Cannonball, and the motorcycle cross-country record. A lot of stuff in this podcast.
Cannonball. The John Viviani Memorial Spec Cannonball.
Well, I'll say it here. I'm working with another business partner on some rally racing. So stay tuned. We're looking at probably 2021, late 2021 dates, but we're looking at a couple different rally ideas. And
you do it in the Assetto, and I'll follow you in a Messerschmitt.
Not. These are more I guess these are more tours than rallies. But there's a first plug. Now I can also use this as a advertising medium for that.
There you go.
But I gave you all the social media stuff mid-episode, which is probably better than waiting to the end because everybody's tuned out by now with our keyboard strokes. But I'm going to say I'm out of here. I hope you enjoyed our slight debate. Weigh in on the social medias and tell us what you thought about it and what your opinion is. And Ed, that's nodrivinggloves@gmail.com. Send us your schedule and we'll get you scheduled on the show. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, John.
I'm going to pick up more medicine for Alley Cat.
Okay.